a lot of what was talked about a little bit today was so much of your writing is funny. And really, I think in many ways, you are a comedic writer.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems, and at least from the outside, it seems so difficult in the sense of comedic writing with the sense of timing, and I think for some it comes naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to ask you a little bit about that process for you. Is that something?
Well, I grew up in a family where people were quite funny, and my children are quite funny. So I have a feeling that there's a genetic component, and then as you grow up in your family with people making jokes and laughing, and then you making jokes and them laughing at you, it's a kind of training in not only being witty but also in appreciating wit. I don't know that I have any advice to give, except that for a novelist, a funny novelist always has a kind of narrower appeal than a tragic novelist. That's because people's senses of humor differ. On the other hand, even though you may have a fairly narrow appeal and you might never win a big prize for any of your funny works, and you're certainly not going to win the Academy Award for a comedy, you will enjoy yourself because you're laughing at your own jokes. I mean, and you're appreciating your own wit. And so, in some sense, comic writing is its own reward, I would say, or it has been for me.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I wanted to ask you, you touched on it briefly, of what you're working on right now,
Mm-hmm.
about a woman's life. She was born in 1883.
She's married to a crackpot. So I'm interested in her marriage and what sort of feelings she has as he's not crazy, he's not like a schizophrenic or anything, but he's a well-known scientific crackpot, and as their marriage progresses, he becomes more and more notorious. And so that he was a relative of mine. This is based on the life of a person who actually existed, though I've changed the names. And so it just fascinates me, not what it was like to be a crackpot scientist, but what it was like to be a fairly normal person, married to someone who, people ran the other way when he came into the room.
And what other considerations are at play? And there are so many people interested in working on either autobiographical fiction or fictionalized memoirs, but even though the names are changed and it's fiction, but when you're dealing with someone that did exist in the world, are there other hesitations about things?
I'm their only descendant.
Okay.
So if I had, if there were others, if they had offspring or something like that, I might be more hesitant. But in fact, our family are the only people around that were related to these people, as far as we know. And so, and I have changed all the names and stuff. I'm just interested in the concept, the concept of being married to someone who's nice enough to you, but, people just run the other direction when they see him coming.
And did you see how his wife dealt with that over time?
Well, that's the interesting thing, because we don't know. She looked fine from the outside. That's the interesting thing. She was funny. She was sociable. She was seemed to be perfectly happy. She did lots of things. Had lots of friends. So where does what a person who seems to be a good, sociable, fun, person who fits in, how does she ally herself to this other person who is notoriously strange?
And you're still in the process of developing?
Yes, I'm about halfway through the first draft.
Do you find that you're solving the mystery as you go along?
Don't know yet.
Okay, still in the middle of it. And then, Jane, any idea of what's next after this? Are you still waiting to see what
I have a couple of ideas. We'll see.
Okay, That's great. And then I don't want to ask the same question that I asked to Daniel that you heard his answer to, but just from your experience teaching as you did in Iowa, and you have such an amazing body of work. Is there anything that you used to tell your students where you, and I know it depends on each individual one, but was there any common theme where a spark might occur with the inspiration of continuing with their work and not giving up?
You know, the advice I have to give, I give in 13 Ways of Looking at the Novel. So I can't give anything. If I had less advice to give, it wouldn't be such a long book. But one of the things I always remember is that when I was in graduate school, one of my fellow students had a little note above her typewriter, and it said, "Nobody asked you to write that novel." And that's a very freeing thing, because it means that you can stop anytime you want, or it means you can go on, but it's always voluntary. And so anytime that you're in the middle of your novel and you're having difficulty, you just say, "Oh, nobody ever asked me to write this novel," and then see what happens. It may be that you'll stop, and you know, it's okay. But it may be that you'll say, "Okay, nobody asked me to write it, but I'm going to write it anyway, and screw them," and you'll go on.